What's up, everybody? What's happening? This is Leon here, hitting you with a very interesting discussion that totally hasn't been talked about through Reddit from time and time again the past couple of weeks. But here I am with my tequila, ready to lay on you some knowledge that you probably already know, but feel like we need to have a little reiteration of it. So the main thesis of this discussion is that Riot just does not want you to communicate in League of Legends. And I think I have few ideas of why this is, but we're we're just gonna organize my thoughts and we're gonna take it from there. So the first thing is that we need to talk about is why does League of Legends not have voice communication and Valorant does, and why League Riot wants to continue stripping that away, with the most recent incident of stripping away of communication being the removal of being able to ping your allies, TP, a bunch of other things. But I think, and Riot's I mean, I get it. Riot wants to prevent toxicity, but League is a punishing game. I think most people can agree that League is a punishing game. When you watch pro play, it's the biggest gap between teams is how much one gets punished and how much mistakes are made. And in an environment where you do not have voice communication, all you have is pings, and that's the fastest way you can communicate your intention to your teammates without get hurting your overall gameplay, to say the least. Like focusing on CS, focusing on trading, focusing on micro, focusing on tracking the enemy jungler. But by taking this communication away, you are making it harder to coordinate with your team. I can no longer see TP is up and tell my teammate, hey, I need you to TP to this fight. I need you to TP to drag early, because most of the times you have to be at drag or not. So most of the times the best decision is to TP as the drag is coming up instead of in the midst of the fight, so you can better be prepared than the other top laner or such. Stuff like that, where it's important to coordinate, but now that's been taken away, so I guess you go fuck yourself. Now, League is more punishing more than Valorant, is because it's a constant flow. You don't get rounds like in Valorant. You don't get positioning like in Valorant. You don't even get halftime like Valorant when you switch sides. Instead, you are locked into this thing. You are going fucking 100 miles per hour in this car, and you better have your seatbelt on, or else once you fucking hit something, you're gonna go flying. You're just gonna get iced. So mistakes become very more important and very more critical towards your overall attitude with your teammates, with the enemy team, and overall having a good mentality. A good example of this is tower dives. A well coordinated tower dive is a thing of beauty, because the other opponent is well, I can't fucking do anything. I did the best I could. Maybe they trade 1-for-1, but overall it's an overall loss, because the wave has been pushed in. They lose gold, they lose XP, and then in some situations they don't even have TP. So in those situations, it's well, there's nothing I can do. I guess I have to get fucked here. And it's a great boon to the top laner and the jungler doing the tower dive, or even mid laner, because it's man, that I have a lot of faith in my top laner or jungle. We pulled this off pretty well. We have control of this side of the map. The jungler can freely invade, and the top laner can freely follow them, because the tower's no longer there. They can have good coordination. But let's think of the other side. The tower dive went fucking horrible. Both the top laner and jungler died. The top laner and the jungler have to live with the consequences of that. So the top laner is well, I'm kind of fucked here, because he has a whole item and stats and levels ahead of me now. The jungler's well, I can't. The other jungler can just fucking freely invade me, and my top laner will probably never get prio. That's just how it is. That's how we have to move on from this. And it's not a really good feeling, and it leads to people blaming one another, because chances are, like, someone made a mistake somewhere, or else it would have gone this horribly. And not saying like I haven't done it before and everyone else hasn't done it before, but like you're more quickly to pass blame unless I'm more willing to pass blame unless I obviously have been fucking retarded and made mistakes. So it's one of those situations where like you're just gonna latch on to whoever you think is at fault and not yourself. And like not many people are very humble to look inward and say like, yeah, I fucked up here. So going on from that, it brings the game overall down, and you get overall more punished because that side of the map is locked off. Jungler can't do anything. Top laner is like stuck in this fucking horrible situation, and which in some matchups you are basically like can't do anything. You're just gonna get killed over and over, and it's like no, and like you feel like that's no fault of your own. It's more like he has more stats, his champion's better than me, I got counterpicked, and now I'm just like stuck in this sloppy jalopy hitting this brick wall, and I can't win. So the main point from this like little ramble is that the game is overall punishing, and that situation could be solved if I just had voice communication. If I could communicate what I want to do, what we need to do, we could overall make that dive better. Instead, all I can do in a quick situation is go on my way or assist me. And sometimes, like, you may not even want a tower dive. Like, from my perspective as a top player, sometimes I just don't want the tower dive because I feel like it's very risky. But, like, usually, like, your jungler pings, I'm coming, or pinging assistance, and you're like pinging them off, but they're not doing it. They are locked in. They are coming, and you have to either live with the consequence of not helping them and have them die, or the consequence of helping them and you both die. And that's such a fucking crippling consequence where like like you could salvage maybe morale because it's like, oh, my top laner had my back on this stupid fucking dive, or he's just gonna get pissed at you and say like, you fucking idiot, why did you do that, you should have done this, this, and this. And it's overall hurts the team that way. And this is just from my perspective on top lane. I feel like it's a lot worse for bottom lane, the ADC support, and mid lane, because mid lane's like a 1v3 lane. Like, you have to keep track of the enemy jungler, keep track of the enemy support, keep track of your own laner, and try not to fucking die. And like, yeah, you can ward and maybe see which side that the enemy jungler comes from or the enemy support comes from. But overall, it's very hard to do with if you're like, for some reason your support doesn't ping it, or it's like, oh, he hasn't come back to lane, and they don't communicate that for some reason. Because like all the quickest way to communicate is pings. Like that's it. Like, you could type, but many people are fast typers, and it's a lot harder to do sometimes. And it like just leads to the situation where that mid laner is getting fucked. And then let's take it to bot side. Like, you can't like mind control. Like, if you're at ADC, you can't just like mind control the enemy ADC, your support. You just can't do it. Like, they're either gonna do what you want, and like you're gonna be in sync, or you're not, and you're just gonna end up hating that person for the rest of the game. So it's like, why don't we have voice chat? Like, that would remedy most of the situations, and it would help like top, jungle, mid, bot, support with like being able to coordinate, being able to be sync. Like, we have the framework there, and Valorant has it, and it's a less punishing game overall. So this leads into my other theory that Riot doesn't want to add voice chat, mainly because it would be too hard to balance for them. I think that's the overall problem. It's too hard to balance, and they think toxicity is going to get worse, and In some ways, I think toxicity is going to happen no matter what. But it's easier to like shout someone down and mute them, in my opinion, than like fucking have to deal with them in chat or deal with their pings and such. Anyway, why do I think Riot thinks it's going to be too much work? Well, like a lot of champions are balanced around poor communication. Let's take the major like abuser of this. Let's take Evelynn. Evelynn is not that great in pro play because you can easily communicate where Evelynn is possibly can be. I mean, she can be invisible in a lot of situations, but if you're able to communicate where she is, she's just not as effective as you would think to be. And supports are also ward vision is also like a little better to deal with Evelynn. Like there's going to be a lot more control wards on the map, and you can communicate that with your team easily. And solo queue, Evelynn is just like she can be fucking anywhere at once, and you won't know a goddamn thing. It's not something that you can easily communicate. I think Evelynn is here, opposed to like Evelynn can be anywhere, and like champs like that will always be good in an environment where there's less communication and shit in pro play. So, and this is just before I like go any further, I'm going to admit I am like a gold player. Like I do play in platinum elo and emerald elo occasionally, but I'm not a good player on the stretch of the imagination. So I'm kind of speaking from like my experience in solo queue and like what I observe in pro play. So I probably should have started with that, but we're here. Let's continue on. At the end of the day, like those champs are going to be a lot harder to balance when people are able to be in constant communication with each other and tell her where the fuck she is. And I like Udi champs that like want to split push a lot, like Sion, Udyr, Yorick. Those champs like really benefit from lack of communication and lack of knowledge in how to deal with them. It's why they're so good in bronze, silver, iron, and a lot worse the higher you go. But like with people communicating like, hey, let's deal with Yorick and then rotate around for the drag. Like communicate our intentions instead of going by feels. It's going to be a lot harder for those champions to exist in solo queue when they're already like absolutely dumpster tier in pro play. So overall, Riot just doesn't want to do it. Riot does not want to pull the trigger because it's going to mean more work for them, and they just don't want to do the work. And they already like have to deal with toxicity, and they're like, oh well, that like gives them a boon to say like, well, we're justified in not doing this extra work because it's just going to lead to toxicity, which is a shit argument, but I can think of why they would move from that point where it's like, I don't want to track like people inting, people fucking saying the no words and voice chat. I don't want to have to deal with balancing Evelynn because people are able to communicate a lot better than others. It's overall just it's a situation I don't envy of them, but I also would point out that being lazy isn't an excuse for making a better environment, better game. I feel like the game would improve if we had voice chat. I don't want to have to like do the Discord link type deal with people and hope that they join. I just want it to be on by default, and I mean, of course the option is going to be people will turn it off, but I at least want to be able to communicate with my jungler as a top laner. I'm sure the ADC wants to communicate with their support, and the mid wants to communicate with all three of those people, the jungler, the ADC, the support, since they have to lean on each other. Overall, the game is about leaning on your teammates, and when all we have is just, oh, I can only ping on my way or assist me or stuff, and it makes it a lot worse because pings don't communicate feelings, pings don't communicate thoughts, pings don't communicate a bunch of things. You either know what they want to do or you don't. They're very simplistic forms of communication, and overall it just doesn't help anything, really. And like Riot recently like got like with the let's take the bait ping for example, like bait ping overall, very stupid, very fun, like, very inappropriate ping when you use... I only used it on friends, personally. I'm pretty sure I only used it on friends. If I used the bait ping on you, I'm sorry, I apologize. It's probably a little liquored up. But overall, like, the bait ping is, like, you're just complicating communication, and it's not implemented very well, which is why it's gone now. Because overall, other than to flame people, no one really used it because it overly complicated it. Like the three major pings are be careful, missing, on the way, and occasionally warded, depending on if you bomb that one or not. And like, all it really does, like, when you add more complicated stuff, all it really does is clutter the ping wheel. Because, like, sometimes I will just accidentally ping, like, something I didn't want to because the wheel is so cluttered and my mouse is in a different position than I want to ping that. Continuing on, like, there's a lot of clutter in the ping menu, and not a lot of it communicates what you want it to. And, like, the four major pings are the only ones that are really used because they convey what you want the most simple way possible without typing. And I think to conclude this video, I think just a lot what the community is saying about communication, it's like Riot's just never going to do it. I don't think we should delude ourselves into thinking Riot will do it, because, like, at the end of the day, Riot doesn't want to make more work for themselves. This game is kind of got to the point where it's like solo queue is balanceable, pro play is balanceable. If we add this new element, it's going to make a lot more issues for us in the long run, so we're just not going to do it. And, like, yeah, I get that. I get what you don't want to do more work. I guess you don't care about the game anymore. It's whatever. But at the end of the day, it just makes more toxicity because we can't communicate with each other. We are locked in this car for 40 minutes. We don't get reprieve. We don't get a round reset where we switch from blue side to red side. We are stuck in this solo queue game. Our elo is on the line, and I'm going to fucking flame my jungler if he takes a shit gank. And that's just how it's going to be. And I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how to convince Riot, like, otherwise, other than, like, making this video and saying, this is how I view the game. This is how it is. We need to move on from here. So, anyway, thanks for listening to my little rant. I am going to finish this tequila and get a refill and listen to this over and see how shit it is. Anyway, see ya.